test right after I pray.
Stand up, Virginia.
All right. Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you for this day. Lord, we do thank you for the mercy you show each of us each day. Lord, for the compassion, the love that you poured out upon us through what Jesus did on the cross for each of us. Lord, you've heard each of these prayer requests that have been breathed to you. Lord, we know that you can take care of each one and that you will in your own way. So, Lord, we praise you right now ahead of time for the way you're going to answer each one of these prayers, Lord, because you are capable, you are our God, you are our provider, you're there for us in every moment of every day. And Lord, we just have to sometimes stop and take a moment and just realize you're there. And Lord, I just pray that you will, in this time that we're worshiping and praising you, that you will just help us to truly focus on you and not the problems that we may face, not the
start working on a dual certification very soon. So
Oh, she's back. She'll be back.
All right, we'll read some more in just a minute, but we want to go back and kind of understand a little bit about the whole message here that the Lord is trying to teach us. Naaman was a great man, and obviously because of the gift that God had bestowed upon him, he was a great man of valor and mighty in war. He was able to do a lot of things, but he was still unclean because he was a leper. You know, many of us look at the leprosy that we see on videos and pictures and internet, stuff like that. We've probably never experienced a leper in front of us. If you've ever traveled much in the world, you potentially have seen that, maybe not. I've seen lepers in different places as I've traveled throughout the world, and it's not a pretty sight. And, you know, open sores, oozing, you know, it's just really not much fun. Yet, that was what this man had. He was a great man in the army of the king of Syria, but he was still unclean as far as the Jewish laws would be concerned. But it took a little child to help him find his way. And sometimes our children can be the ones who help us the most when it comes to faith. We see the faith of a little child. I can't tell you how many times that when my sons were younger, they'd be jumping on the bed and I'd say, don't do that, but here, jump to me instead. And I'd catch them. And then every now and then I wasn't paying attention. I'd turn around, they'd be halfway through the air flying into my arms. And it took a little bit of time to teach them not to jump when I wasn't looking. They had a lot of faith in what their dad could do. But ultimately, we have to have a lot of faith in what our Heavenly Dad can do. Our Heavenly Father, who has given so much for each of us. Sometimes I think we just don't really truly comprehend. Even as Christians, we know what Jesus did for us, but if we truly understood it, I think it would touch us so deep that we would never be the same. We couldn't go back in any way, shape, or form to what we were before. So the king had heard about the prophet in Israel and sent to the king of Israel. So he sends Naaman and a letter and all these gifts and things to the king. And the king, obviously you remember what he said. He was like, am I God to kill and to make alive? There, verse 7. So he felt like the king of Syria was trying to pick a fight with him, to get in an argument with him, saying, you know, I sent this man to you and you didn't do it, so now I can invade your country and I can beat you guys up and I can take your land and your people and I'm going to be the king of the world here. But that really wasn't the case. The perception was wrong because he didn't understand. But then walks in Elijah. He didn't actually walk in. He said, hey, go tell the king this. So what was really interesting, though, was when Naaman came to Elisha's house, Elisha didn't even come out. Talk about insult. Here this man is, a mighty warrior sent by a king with a letter saying, you know, you need to heal me. And he didn't even come out of the house. Didn't even darken the doorstep. I mean, he didn't even open the door probably. Instead, he sent a servant out. And that was probably even more insulting. Because this man is a mighty man. He's got lots of servants serving him. And it takes a servant coming out saying, oh, go wash in the Jordan 7 times, you'll be clean. Insult, injury, aggravation, frustration. But ultimately, it was a lack of expectations. His expectations were thought out. And he said there in verse 11, here's what got him in trouble. He said, behold, I thought. Sometimes we think God's going to answer a certain way. Sometimes we think he should answer a certain way. But he says in Jeremiah that his thoughts are not our thoughts. And he knows the plans he has for us. And sometimes it's to suffer, to make us more Christ-like. But that's where our faith has to really stay strong. And that's sometimes where we falter the most because we don't think that God's doing the right thing by us. But he's probably doing the best thing for us. Well, no, I won't say he probably is. He is doing the best thing for us. Got to keep my wording right there. Here's where he thought. He said, behold, I thought, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hand over the place and recover the leper. So he had all these great expectations. So now he walks up with his chariots and everything, and he's standing there on his chariot and his horse, whatever he was riding on at that moment, and out comes a servant, not even the prophet. Again, insult, injury, and then he gets really mad. He's comparing the rivers of Damascus to the Jordan River. I mean, he's thinking, hey, our rivers are better than this thing. Why can't I do this at home? Why couldn't I just stay home and done this? I traveled all this way, I'm insulted because the king gets mad at me. Now I'm insulted because here's a servant telling me what to do. Not even the prophet himself. It's not what I was thinking was going to happen here. That's why I get so mad. But it was interesting that, again, somebody else had to kind of intervene. It wasn't a little child necessarily, but some of the other servants came and said, hey, I'm going to paraphrase here. If he told you to go out and kill some big dragon or something, I mean, done something really miraculous and amazing, you'd have done it, wouldn't you? So he just said, go wash. He made it easy. Why are you making it difficult? Okay, that's my paraphrase. But what's interesting is he finally said, okay, verse 14, then he went down, and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came again unto him like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. It was so simple. He tried to complicate it with all these other thoughts and all these other inferences that he felt should have been done. But all it took was an act of faith. And that's the central core of what we're talking about here this morning is an act of faith. We can't be saved without that same act of faith. And it's not complicated. It's not difficult. It's a simple process of saying, okay, I believe you. I will trust you. And I will do what you say, even though it doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to do this. It made no sense to this man here. Naaman had all sorts of choices to make, but he made the one that was best for him. He made a choice to go ahead and accept what God said through Elisha and go and wash himself 7 times. And his faith was rewarded because on that 7th time when it came out, he was clean. Now he could have quit it 3 or 4 times and go, no, didn't work. I'm out of here. But he went the whole distance. And that's where sometimes I think we, as Christians, sometimes forget that it's a daily sacrifice of ourselves. In the book of Luke 9:23 it says, and if any man will come after me, let him deny himself daily, take up his cross, and follow me. It's a conscious decision every single day to live by faith. And sometimes I think we forget that because I know for me, I'll give you a good example. I get up in the morning, I go and I brush my teeth, I shave, I take my shower, and I'm already working. I haven't even got out the door yet. I'm barely out of bed, out of the shower, and I'm starting to think of all the things that need to be done today. Besides work, then I have projects at home that need to be done, and I'm thinking about those. I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get all this stuff done, and where's my attention, where's my focus, where's my faith. Okay? So I can speak from experience. I know what people go through because I'm people. Most of the time. But we're going to pick up the verses again, verse 15. It says, and when he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and he said, behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. And Elisha speaking, he said, as the Lord liveth before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. So Elisha is saying, nope, I don't need anything. Naaman's going, come on, I got plenty of stuff to give. And Elisha's going, nope, don't need it. Verse 17, and Naaman said, shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifices unto other gods, but unto the Lord. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaveth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said unto him, go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. So now again, Naaman has been refused the gifts to Elisha, but he does say, hey, let me take some earth from Israel. Let me take 2 burdens or 2 loads of dirt on my mules back to my home. But I'm not going to offer burnt offerings or any of those things anymore. I've seen the light. I've seen the love of God. I've seen that cleansing. I've seen his mercy. I want to worship your God only. But then he says, I've got a problem there in verse 18. He said, my master leans on me. He's older, I guess. He leans on me when he goes into the house of Rimmon to worship, and I have to go in there worshiping that God, I'm worshiping the God of Israel, will the Lord forgive me for that? Am I allowed to do that because I'm serving my master, which is something I need to do, but I want to serve God, but I don't want to offend God? And then Elisha did say, in there in verse 19, go in peace. He's saying God is going to honor that because he knows where your heart is, not just your body, he knows your heart. So the heart change was instantaneous, it was deep, and it was truly life-changing. And that's what each of us has gone through to accepting the Lord our Savior. But then we see what happens when sometimes people aren't truly living the way they really should, when even as a Christian or a so-called Christian. There in verse 20 we pick it up again. It says, but Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, behold, my master has spared Naaman the Syrian, in not receiving at his hands that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him, and said, is all well? And he said, all is well, my master has sent me. Line number 1. Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garment. And Naaman said, be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver, talents of silver in 2 bags, with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he come to the tower, he took them from their hand, and bestowed them in the house, and he let them in go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said unto him, whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, thy servant went no whither. In other words, I didn't go anywhere. And he said unto him, went not my heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money and to receive garments, and olive yards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maid servants? The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence a leper, as white as snow. Now there's a big story to be had right there, a big lesson for each of us as we think about it, because when we take praise and honor and glory from God, when we do something for someone else, we're stealing from God. And there's no right in our lives, no reason for us to do that. If I go out and do something for someone else, God should get that credit because he gave me the ability, he gave me the skill, the talent, the wisdom, the money, whatever it was that I gave to that individual. However I helped him, God gave that to me. And it's his to give and it's his to take away. Everything that we have is his. Our very lives, our very breath, everything that we have belongs to him. And the more we realize that, the more willing we are to let him use it as he sees fit. But sometimes we get in the way, we take the glory, we take the credit, and God wants us to realize that that's not appropriate. I think deep down we all know that. Sometimes we just need to be reminded. I know I do. There are times when I will say something to someone, they'll come to me and ask me a question, they'll say something, and I'll answer them, and they'll say, wow, that's amazing. And I'll go, don't look at me, I didn't give it to you. I try my best not to take praise for the wisdom that I don't have, because it's not my wisdom. If someone comes to me and asks me a question, and I can answer that question for them, ultimately it's God answering through me.
Amen.
Because he's the one who gives me the wisdom on how to answer a question for people, that gives them guidance, that helps them in their walk with the Lord. And through the years, it's been amazing as I stand and preach. I sometimes will struggle deeply trying to figure out, what do you want me to say, Lord? And I have numerous times had people come to me and say, how did you know? And I have to answer honestly and say, I didn't. I don't even know what you're talking about. And they'll say, well, how did you know I needed that message, that particular message today? And I'll go, again, I did. God did.
Amen.
It's his message. And so be careful when, at the end of any message, no matter who's speaking, whether it's a teacher, a preacher, song minister, whatever, whoever's doing it, God ultimately needs to be praised for that. You can thank that person if you want for helping you to see through what God spoke through them. But be careful that we don't hurt the praise of God and take away from that praise of God when we do that. So, the simplicity of what we saw here was an act of faith. That act of faith was an act, not just a thought. It wasn't well, I'll get around to it. I'll do it someday. It was immediate when God spoke through the man of God. It was life-changing. And it was forever life-changing. It wasn't just a few days, because he knew when he went back, he was still going to have to do other things that went against what he now believed. But he also knew how to take care of that. And God knew the man's heart. From the very moment it changed, God knew that man's heart. He knew it before, but he especially knew it now. And it's funny because it never says that Elijah prayed. It never said that he sought the Lord, but we know because he was a man of God, he was constantly praying. He was constantly seeking the Lord. And that's why we know that the words he spoke were from God. Because he knew what Naaman needed. He knew that he needed a simple act of faith to cleanse him and to make him whole again. And sometimes that's what we need, is that simple act of faith to come back to the altar and say, Lord, I've been walking my own way. I need to get back right with you today, and now is the time. I don't know what each person in this room is going through, but I do know that God had a reason for this message, not only me and helping me, but for others. So we'll have a time of prayer, and then we're going to have another song. I don't know what it is yet. But we'll have another song, something slow and easy, and we will have a time where you can come to the altar, you can pray. If you choose to, you can stay in your seat and pray, and then after the song is done, you'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, I do thank you and praise you for this day. I thank you for your love. Lord, I thank you so much for your love that came to be a man, to live a sinless, perfect life, and die on the cross for us. Your love name, Jesus. And Lord, I thank you that you do show us mercy and grace. You show us forgiveness when we forgive. And that, Lord, because you do forgive us, we have no right to hold anything against any other person. But Lord, we thank you that you gave us the ability to have faith. You gave us a way to have faith when we back to you. So Lord, I pray that during this time of the song that you will just give us an understanding of what each of us needs to do to truly live a life of faith for you, to truly be a reflection of who you are, and that others would see you in us, not us. Thank you for all the things you do for us. And Lord, I know that you're going to answer prayers that are being prayed right now. You're going to change lives that need to be changed. And you're going to help us to be better Christians as we go from this place. And I thank you and praise you for that, and ask all these things